Wolf of Wall Street meets the NFL, the GM, VP, and Aidan Hutchinson joins the show. We got all that and more. I'm Jason Fitz, and it is time for Zero Blitz. Wow, I just realized I'm Jason Fitz, and it's time for Zero Blitz rhymes. Like, I don't know how I'm this late into the season. This is just coming to my head. That's going to be a thing for the rest of the year. Hanging out with my good buddy today, Frank Schwab. You usually hear us on Sunday Night Blitz. I'm going to work in the rhyme scheme there, my friend. I've made you do double duty. So first and foremost, thanks for hanging out with me today, because today we're going to have a little fun. We're going to do some different things. We're going to do some hot take debate. Like, this is about to get fiery. Can our friendship survive the fire we're about to throw down?
I know, and that's the thing. On Sunday night, I kind of come up with these crazy takes on the spot, right? Now I've had days to let them marinate and to really get crazy. So yeah, we're going to go on some limbs today, man. We're going to find out if I can convince you of any of the nonsense I'm selling here today.
That's the goal here. See, we're both, what we decided we were going to do is, what do you do when you've got two, like, we'll go 80s wrestling here. We're like a tag team, right? We're in sync. Everything's working perfectly. Everything's going the way we want it to go. But all of a sudden, we're trying to create a little drama. We need a little strife. We need a little bit of disagreement between the two of us. So we're going to do that. And we're going to do that with a Wolf of Wall Street inspiration here. Sell me this pen. We all remember Wolf of Wall Street, sell me this pen, right? So the objective here is not only to have the hot take, but then to be able to deliver the hot take with such passion that we can sell the other person to come along with it, or at least create great debate. By the way, I'm just going to let's get the weirdness out here right out of the way, Frank. Like, I mentioned this last night as I was talking before the show to Jory Epstein, Charles Robinson, as we were getting ready for Inside Coverage. Like, Wolf of Wall Street's a great movie. Margot Robbie, I think Margot Robbie, I think that was her first big role. I still can't figure out how to process having your first huge movie role in any movie be like, you're sitting there naked. Like, it just feels like that'd be weird. You're like, Mom, Dad, Grandma, hey, Meemaw, come watch my movie debut. And the first scene is like a graphic nude. I don't know. When I think Wolf of Wall Street, I always think Margot Robbie's dad had to be incredibly proud, but also incredibly uncomfortable in the opening. See, I'm just throwing that out.
You know what I always remember with this is, I believe her name's Alexandria Daddario. She was a true detective. She did a nude scene in that. And then later on, Barack Obama had some quote where he's like, I really, really love True Detective. And Alexandria Daddario came back with, oh my God, Obama's seen my boobs. Like, I mean, that's just, it was so hilarious to like put two and two together of like, oh my God. Yeah. So yes, exactly. Wolf of Wall Street is absolutely rewatchable. I love it. Anytime it comes on. Within the first few minutes of this show, you have brought up 80s tag team wrestling and Wolf of Wall Street. Like, we're in for a heck of a show here. You're right down my alley. I can't believe it.
The unfortunate thing here is that we're about to have our rockers moment, like the barbershop.
Yeah,
like,
I'm going to get kicked through the window. Yeah. Like
one of us is going to be Shawn Michaels, and one of us is going to be Dark Side of the Ring Marty Jannetty by the time this thing's done.
That episode was crazy, by the way. I don't want to get off into a Dark Side of the Ring tangent, but man, I love old wrestling documentaries. I don't watch wrestling anymore, but I love old wrestling documentaries. Like, give me all this stuff on Andre the Giant, whatever. Yeah, man, so they're going to be fired up already.
Stone's just going to have to relax for a second. I got to get this off my chest. Okay. Not that Stone ever tells us that we can't talk about whatever. Stone, producer extraordinaire, by the way, doing God's work. So the funny thing is, when I was a little kid growing up in Vegas, as you know, I was a violinist, as I think everybody at this point knows, and I was a very accomplished violinist as a young kid. Right. So when I was around 7, 8 years old, I was the concert master, which is the first chair of a competitive college-aged orchestra in Las Vegas. So I was the first chair, and we did our rehearsals at this place called the Showboat Casino, right? Showboat also hosted all the old AWA wrestling matches.
Of course.
So they would come in and they would bring wrestling tickets to the orchestra. They would always give those to me because they're all college-age kids that are well past the wrestling time. I'm an 8-year-old. So if you watch some of those old AWA matches from the Showboat that ESPN Classics used to show all the time, you can freeze frame and find me and my dad like 10 rows back. That whole era of wrestling. I was then a few years ago, I'm sitting in Bristol, Connecticut, and Marty Jannetty's doing a meet and greet at like a local toy store. I actually missed a production meeting. You know me, I never do that. To go to the meet and greet, and it was as awful as Dark Side of the Ring made it look. But I still have a junkie tag team team championship belt, like terrible belt the store sold me. I should have brought my own, my fault. But they sold me this terrible belt signed by Marty Jannetty. And I'm like, yeah, I got the rocker. Nobody remembers signing my stuff. The Midnight Rockers, thank you if you're an AWA kid.
Hey, man, I remember them. I remember it all, man. Like that's a deep cuts. Yeah, like you'll show about. Yeah, that's amazing. I'm gonna have to go back. Because it's all on YouTube, right? Everything's on YouTube. Everything in the world's on YouTube. I'm gonna actually go back and watch some of those old shows from Showboat Casino. Try to find you. We're gonna have to text back and forth just so I can see you on those old shows.
In the meantime, I'm sure Stone has looked at what time we started this conversation and what time we ended it to figure out how to get this out of the damn podcast.
You can't catch us this early on a Thursday morning. We're just gonna get way out of script. We're out of control, man.
Next year's show with the two of us is just going to get called Gets Weird. All right, so let's go to Sell Me the Pen. Sell Me the Pen, and I think we have some hot takes here. Let's bounce back and forth. So I'll do the first one, you do the next one. That way we can go back and forth, see if we can do some selling, okay? So I'm going to sell you that I am all in, that when the whole thing is said and done, the Dallas Cowboys will be in Las Vegas representing the NFC in the Super Bowl. And I'm going to sell you to this.
This is like molten right away. All right, come on with it.
Look, there are fatal flaws to everybody in the NFC, and I include the Philadelphia Eagles, even though they only have one loss. And I understand that the Eagles just beat the Cowboys, but let's be real. If you go back and watch that game, as much as people want to talk about Dak can't win the big game, Dak definitely played well enough for them to win that game. And they also have their uncoverable wide receiver, and they've also found, I think it took a second when they lost Diggs on the defensive side of the ball, and everybody says, what's it going to look like? It's taken a second for that defense to get back to where that defense can be. But when you have a disruptive pass rush, which, by the way, they have, and you have a quarterback that can win those games, which, by the way, you have, and you have an epic wide receiver, which, by the way, they have. If you look at everything that it takes to be a championship team, the answer to me is why not the Cowboys? And as much as we want to sit here and talk about other teams, I'm going to say, hey, I have no idea right now. Brock Purdy, I've been high on. I have no idea what the 49ers are going to look like. I don't know what the Lions are going to look like in the NFC Championship game. So this all comes down to two teams, the Eagles and the Cowboys. And what did we just see? In Philly, with everything on the line, it took every ounce of Philly to try and win that football game, and Dallas still had a chance all the way to the end. You put that thing in another situation, if I have to bet on it another Sunday, I think that completion can come through closer to the goal line. I think the Cowboys can get it done. I think the Cowboys could go to the Super Bowl. What do you think, Frank?
All right, Wolf of Wall Street, where he goes to the first guy, he's like, sell me this pen, and the guy's like, it's a good pen, and he just goes right to the next guy. That's me with this take on you. I am not buying this at all, because every time the Cowboys play a good team, what do we hear afterwards? Oh, we're okay. Next time we're going to get them. They better get in there, whatever now, because we're going to get them next time. Well, how many times can you hear this? How many times can you hear, yeah, next time is going to be our time? I don't buy it. I think that they're that team that's good. They're good. I wouldn't take that from them, but they're not good enough to get over the hump. They just don't have that extra gear to beat the Eagles, to beat the 49ers. They can beat the heck out of, the Giants. Yeah, great. That's awesome. I just don't think they have it in them to get over the hump and make a Super Bowl. And also, I don't think they're winning the NFC East. I don't think that this Cowboys team with Mike McCarthy as a head coach, and I do like Dak. Dak's going to be the next Kirk Cousins, right? Like, everybody just wants to rip on Dak no matter how well he plays. I like Dak. I think Dak's a good quarterback. But I don't think that combo gets them to the Super Bowl. I don't think they win the NFC East. They're not going on the road 3 straight games and going to a Super Bowl. So I get it. They're good. Anything could happen, that kind of thing. But you didn't sell me well on that one. I can't buy it. I can't buy the Cowboys when they can't win the big game. They just, every time Micah Parsons is going to be sitting there mid-January after they lost the playoff game going, we're going to be okay. We're going to get them next time. All right, whatever.
What about, okay, so if you look their next several games, Giants, Carolina, Washington, very easy. Then they hit what's supposed to be murderer's row on their schedule. But I can make the argument that Seattle's been good, but Seattle a little up and down. Then they play Philly again at home this time. They get Philly. They gave Philly everything they can handle in Philly. Then they get a Buffalo team that doesn't look like they're anywhere near who they should be. Then they get a Miami team that can't beat anybody with a winning record. Then they get Detroit at home. And then they finish with Washington. Murderer's Row doesn't look all that murdery anymore. So they have the schedules in front of them in a way that they can be okay.
I will say this, the Eagles have a true murderer's row of like, oh my goodness, are they going to go like 3-3 in this stretch? I give you that. That scheduling probably isn't as bad for the Cowboys as it is for the Eagles. So maybe that they need to win the NFC East though for this to happen. Like for me to even buy a little bit into the Cowboys winning a Super Bowl, I think they need to win the NFC East. I can't get that. I don't know how they're better than the Eagles. And you look, yes, they gave them everything they could handle, all that kind of stuff, all true. But it's the Cowboys. We're always talking about this at the end, like, oh, they couldn't make this play. Oh, they were 1 yard short or 1 foot short. That touchdown on 4th down. Oh, they took a sack when they couldn't take a sack. It always is something with the Cowboys, and I think it's just going to remain that way.
Okay, well, the point of sell me this pen is that I'm trying to sell you a luxury item or a discount item at a luxury price. Maybe I didn't get there. Let's see if you can get there. It's your turn. Sell me a pen. What are you selling me? I
hate to do this, but I'm out on Brian Daboll. I think he's Matt Nagy. I've made that comparison before, Fitz. I'm going to tell you, we all talked about Brian Daboll like he was the reason Josh Allen became a thing. What if Josh Allen was the reason Josh Allen became a thing? He was the guy in the summers working on his accuracy, working all these things he needed to. Maybe Brian Daboll just kind of rode his coattails to the Giants job. Had a good year, but not a great year. We're like, the Giants made the playoffs last year and they won a game. Yeah, the Giants were really out over their skis. They were Vikings light. Like they were the regression's coming for them team. We all kind of forget that because they won a playoff game. Well, you come into this season and it has been an absolute failure. I think Brian Daboll is a one-year wonder. Don't forget, Giants fans don't like when I bring this up. You like Ben McAdoo once upon a time, too. He went to the playoffs his first year, I believe 11-5, and he was out of there real quick. I look at this Giants team that's falling apart, and I'm not just talking about the quarterback falling apart, right? This is a team that, you had Xavier McKinney this week say, our coaches aren't listening to the leaders anymore. We're bringing suggestions to them on the sideline, and they're just not listening to us. Ooh, for that to be happening is bad. B, for McKinney to air that out in public is even worse. I just wonder if he's losing this team and we're going to look up and be like, yeah, maybe Josh Allen was the reason Josh Allen developed, not Brian Daboll, who we've given all the credit to. I think he's a one-year wonder. I think he's the next NFL coach of the year that kind of just fades really quickly. I've seen nothing from this Giants team that make me think that he's a high-end coach. So the pen I'm selling you right now is that Brian Daboll is a one-year wonder, and he's going to get fired this year. I'm not saying that. He's built up a little more goodwill than that, but I'm not sure he lasts 4 or 5 years. I think this Brian Daboll thing is going to go south.
You've sold me the pen here. I'll give you credit for that. However, I think where we were really sold the pen was last year. Because remember last year when everybody was talking about, Daboll, look, he didn't just hire his assistants. He had everybody come in the room and he created this community within the coaching staff. And he's doing things different that we've never seen. We looked for reasons to make Brian Daboll a superstar from the outset. And last year we saw an uptick in Josh Allen's irresponsibility with the football. So I think last year we took all of these little things and we made them big things. So I think because last year I was sold the pen, this year, I'm like, now I'm with you. I actually, you've sold me the pen on it. I think that's a nice job by you. But the flip side of that is that I think the problem is I bought the pen last year. And what if Daboll was just pretty good in her first year and now, like everybody, you don't have a quarterback. The team is not gelled together. I think one of the biggest misses so far of this season that I cannot figure out is Jalen Hyatt is a player that I believed in coming out. I drafted him in all of my fantasy dynasty leagues. I talked to people around the Tennessee program extensively around the draft, and they continually was told by smart people that this concept he can only run 1 or 2 routes in the route tree was absolutely failed and a disservice to him. And I expected something great from Jalen Hyatt. And Jalen Hyatt has been virtually invisible. So, I just...
not just him, Fitz. What about Darren Waller? Darren Waller came in and we were like, oh my God, he's going to have 100 catches. He was a ghost. And look, I get that they've had injuries. I get that, Daniel Jones is done. They're drawing dead the rest of the year. They're probably not going to win another game. They didn't look good when Daniel Jones was at quarterback. I mean, what improvement have the New York Giants made from year 1 to year 2 of Brian Daboll? Like you said, is Jalen Hyatt? He hasn't really done anything. We know he's got talent. We know Darren Waller's got talent. And he was really, except for 1 game, he's been on the milk carton. So it doesn't. I hate that for the Giants fans who got so excited about Brian Daboll, but I don't know, man. It's just there's nothing good this year. There's no sign that this is going to be any good.
All right, so it is my turn to sell you a pen again. Now I'm looking at this pen, and I'm realizing I'm looking at you. This is not your kind of pen. I know this is not your kind of pen, but I know why this should be your kind of pen. I am ready to sell you this pen because I'm using this pen to not write off the Miami Dolphins. Now, hear me out. I know the Dolphins have not beat anybody good. I understand that they haven't actually won a meaningful football game this year. Fine. I'll give you all the credit in the world for that. I understand it. But here's what we know. We know they have the most uncoverable wide receiver in a year full of uncoverable wide receivers in the NFL. They know that they have an offense that can absolutely churn from anywhere, anytime, anyhow. I believe in offense in one-game sample sizes. I still do. The Dolphins' defense has played better than expected. But here's the biggest point, Frank. If you look at their losses, and their losses have been, bad at times, what have we seen? 5 or 6 good minutes of Dolphins football turns into an almost win. So if you're telling me that a team that plays 45 minutes of trash still has a chance to win the game, that tells me something. So when you don't have any one thing, I'm not looking at it saying, hey, Tua melts down against good opponents, or the defense just can't get after good opponents. Like, it just feels like they haven't figured out how to, air quotes, get over the hump. But that being said, it takes one time to get over the hump before everything changes. Remember, when the Bengals went on their Super Bowl run, they actually struggled through the first couple of playoff games because they were getting obliterated on the front side, right? Like, those games were close football games. But the fact is, when you got a quarterback and a wide receiver that can absolutely chuck it down the field, you still stand a chance. As much as the AFC right now, it looks like the Dolphins going to have to wiggle their way in through this playoff battle. I believe that the AFC North will eventually start chopping each other off at the knees. That's going to take care of some of those playoff spots we're talking about. And you're giving me a one-game sample size with an offense that can score from anywhere, with a head coach that I do think is still shown that he is brilliant to come up with great schemes, and a defense that is playing better. I understand they haven't beaten anybody, but past performance is not always indicative of future results. Give me the opportunity to contend with teams when I know I'm the Dolphins and I know that I can absolutely do it. I've done it in short spurts. I just need to put a full game together.
You know what? I'm going to buy it. I'm going to buy. Woo! There you go. I'm going to buy it because I agree with it. I think a point you made late there is really important, is that they have the coaching to really fix this. Whatever their drawback is against good teams. And as you pointed out, they did get blown out by the Bills. Like, that was a rough one. But the last 2 games, you're right. They were in the game right at the end. And we know those are coin flip games, but they have the coaching to get there. Mike McDaniel, I've bought all the stock everybody has. He's great. Vic Fangio, an awesome coach. And it was going to take a while to get his scheme. Now you got Jalen Ramsey back. They're really going to get better. Look, they do the one thing nobody else in the NFL could do this year. That's score. Like, they're the only good offense. They're the only good offensive football this year. So I'll buy it. I think that, yes, even though I have written extensively about this team can't beat an elite team, haven't beat a team with a winning record, et cetera, well, that changes at some point. You just need one, like you said. So I'm in. I'm buying.
He might have buyer's remorse the next day, but he bought for now. All right, so you're up. Give me something I got to buy.
I guess this is related. I think a non-quarterback is going to win MVP. Let me tell you that. And I'll tell you, I'm going to come out right out front. I'm going to tell you every reason why you shouldn't buy this, Fitz, but then I'm going to convince you why you should. A non-quarterback has not won MVP since 1993, unless you're a 2,000-yard rusher or a running back that set a single-season touchdown record. Go back and look. It was Emmitt Smith in 93. Since then, every single MVP, quarterback, running back 2,000 yards, running back sets a single-season touchdown record. But in this season, I don't think there's a quarterback that really stands out. I'll go kind of an aside here. I think the quarterback situation in the NFL is so ragged this year. I do believe my stuff I talked on Sunday about CJ Stroud MVP. I think he gets at least one vote, which is pretty incredible for a rookie if you think about it. But at the end of the day, I don't think a rookie quarterback's going to win. And I don't know that the Texans are going to make the playoffs. That's almost a prerequisite to winning MVP, right? They're going to pick they're going to pick a quarterback. They're going to pick but which quarterback? I look at it right now as 3 non-quarterbacks have a shot at MVP. Got Christian McCaffrey, who's just scores every game. Like, he's unbelievable. If he keeps the streak going the rest of the season, and he actually might, as crazy as that sounds, that's the kind of thing that puts him in line. It's like the touchdown record that has gotten other guys like Marshall Faulk the MVP before. Tyreek Hill, he had a rough week last week. That's fine. I still think he's going to get 2,000 yards to break Calvin Johnson's record. That puts him on the map. And with A.J. Brown going off every single week for a great Eagles team, I think all 3 of those guys have a shot. The only thing I worry about is, among those voters, I still think it's 50. Among those 50 voters, do the non-quarterback voters, the guys who had the open mind to vote for non-quarterbacks, Do some of them give it to AJ? Some of them give it to McCaffrey? Some of them give it to Tyreek? And we just end up with a quarterback with 17 votes who wins MVP? Maybe. But I don't think there's no quarterback right now that's having an MVP season. None. And I don't know that turns around. So I think this is the year a non-quarterback wins MVP. I worry it's McCaffrey because I want something crazy here, Fitz. I want a receiver to win it. Jerry Rice never won an MVP, which is absolutely wild to me. But I think this year, if Tyreek's the guy for me, if he gets to 2,100 yards, why can't he win MVP? Tell me I've sold you on the idea that somebody other than a quarterback is winning MVP this year.
So you've sold Christian McCaffrey is where you sold me, right? Like I think CMC getting the MVP not only sounds good when it rolls off the tongue, it also feels like that's the right, especially if he ends up scoring a touchdown every game this season. That's just such an easy record to rely on. And as you mentioned, no quarterback. I start going through the list. I think the only quarterback that might still have a way to play his way into that conversation could be Joe Burrow. He'll get forgiveness for the fact that early on he had the calf injury.
I'd say Lamar. Lamar's in there too.
Lamar's in there, but gaudy numbers aren't, right? Like,
yeah,
so
you're right.
I feel like Lamar should be a candidate, but when you start to think about the touchdown interception numbers, it isn't what we usually associate with that. But I would give you that this feels like you've sold me that a non-quarterback could win the MVP. This will win the MVP. I think you've sold me on that.
Nice.
But I'm gonna turn around now and take that same pen and I'm gonna sell it back to you. Because what I'm going to sell you is that Tyreek Hill is not an MVP candidate. And I just said all these glory.
You got me on board with the AWA and Wolf of Wall Street, the Rockers. Now you just turn. This is why I just got kicked through the window of the barbershop. I just got kicked through the window.
You know, and this is now, it's not only that, we're also going to that Shawn Michaels moment where I'm looking at Ric Flair and saying, I'm sorry, because I'm about to denounce everything you just said. Look, this is God, the 80s wrestling analogies.
Awesome. We can do this all day, yeah.
We will. So here's the thing with Tyreek. The numbers are spectacular. That's great. But it hasn't shifted the narrative. And the narrative is that the Dolphins can't beat a good team, right? And in a year where there are several wide receivers that are virtually uncoverable. You mentioned A.J. Brown. I've mentioned CeeDee Lamb, right? Obviously, Tyreek is in this conversation. When you are putting up gaudy numbers in the same year that multiple people are putting up gaudy numbers, you can't separate. When you're putting up gaudy numbers for a team that can't beat great teams, you can't separate. When you have one bad game, I won't even say it's a bad game, but when you have a game that's meh against your former team that everybody's got eyes on, you can't separate from that stuff. So like Tyreek Hill is playing video game football, but MVP, like that means something. And that, to your point, requires a playoff team that's putting up incredible record-setting historic moments. And also the guy that we all immediately think of as, wow, like to me, the MVP, their clear cut cannot be a debate when we're having a conversation at the end of the year. Hey, which wide receiver had the best season? And right now, even though everybody's going to talk about Tyreek Hill, if we say which wide receiver is having the best season, there are pundits out there that are smart, not even just fans. They're going to say, man, how do you not take AJ? Man, how do you not take CeeDee? Like, you know, by the end of the year, after the Raiders have ripped off 9 straight wins, how do you not take Devontae? Like the number of wide receivers, I slipped that one in there. The number of wide receivers that are part of that conversation, essentially it eliminates the ability for Tyreek to be the MVP. Therefore, he is not a serious MVP candidate. Are we buying my pen?
I almost have to. That was a great argument. You're right. You're right that I would love to. It's just a contrarian to me, right? And I don't know. I might just throw the pen away after I buy it, just because I don't want the reminder that maybe I was wrong on this. But you're right that what differentiates him right now from AJ Brown, and they haven't beat anybody great, and they haven't. You know, he hasn't had the. You know, going for 200 yards against the Broncos or whatever. Great, that's awesome. You got to do it against the Chiefs of the world too. He needs that signature game at least, because I think he needs to get the record to get in the MVP conversation. 2,000 yards. 2,000 yards has always been a magical number, right? If he gets there, he'll get consideration, but it almost like it has to happen against the Bills in week 18, right? Like it has to be that kind of game where he just goes completely crazy against a good team in a big spot. Yeah, I can't say you're wrong. That was a great argument. It was a great argument, kind of refuting, you know, my Tyreek Hill love here. I don't want. I feel bad now that I have to capitulate, as Evan Silva and of Leviton like to say on an established run. Tyreek needs to get. Let's come to an accord and just say Tyreek Hill needs to check the box of having a big game in a really big spot to get back and really be a true MVP contender.
Yeah, that's probably fair. Okay, so your turn. Sell me a pimp. What do we got?
I think this is a weird season, right, Fitz? Like we have had really down teams, and nobody seems to want to be great, and the scoring's down, all that kind of stuff. I think I'm just going to get weird and say when we look up after Week 18, our number one seeds are going to be the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Detroit Lions. Like how crazy is that? That we're going to be each of those teams 2 home games away from being in the Super Bowl. First with the Jaguars. They're 6-2. They've had the longest winning streak of football right now, 5 games. Their defense has been way better than any of us thought. They're number 3 in DVOA right now. We know their offense is capable, obviously. Trevor Lawrence. The thing for me with the Jaguars is they play in the weakest division. They're going to run away with that division. I'm not buying on the Colts or the Titans or anybody else, or even the Texans. I think the Jaguars run away with that division, whereas the Chiefs still have some tough games coming up. The Dolphins, we know that despite the fact that, the Bills, I don't really trust them. Dolphins aren't going to run away with that division. The AFC North is unbelievable. I think that the Jacksonville Jaguars can put together the type of record to get them the number 1 seed. And my argument for the Detroit Lions, very similar. They play in maybe the worst division of football. NFC South, I guess, is up there too. If you look at the Lions' remaining schedule, they have a lot of winnable games. It might really come down to that Cowboys game. I believe that's on New Year's Eve. I look at where these 2 teams are right now, and the path is so clear for them to be number 1 seed. So I believe they're the best teams, maybe not. But if you're 2 home wins away from the Super Bowl, you got a shot to make the Super Bowl. We might be looking at a Jaguars-Lions Super Bowl this year. Like it's absolutely on the table. The Lions are a good team. The Jaguars are a good team, probably better than we expected even. And I think these are our number 1 seeds at the end of the season. And I don't know what's going to happen in the playoffs. It's a 1-game situation. A lot of good teams. 49ers still there. We're going to see all the AFC North teams go to Jacksonville, all that kind of stuff. But I believe that these will be the 2 best teams in each conference. Have I sold you on the weirdness of Jaguars and the Detroit Lions being the kings of the NFL after the regular season?
You, sir, it is way too early for you to be drinking. Like that, like do we need to have a conversation? Like look, it is way too early because frankly, I'll buy half your pen. I'll buy that the Lions, while I don't think the Lions are the best team in the NFC, I think the Lions have a very real shot at home field advantage throughout the playoffs, the top seed there. But you have lost your mind on the Jags. I mean, when you look at who the Jags have coming up, they have San Francisco coming up, right?
At home. They could. San Francisco's lost 3 in a row. Like they got to go all the way to the East Coast. That's not a gimme for the 49ers.
The Jags in the next few weeks, they have San Francisco, then Tennessee, whatever. Then they have Houston, whatever. Then they have Cincinnati, Cleveland, Baltimore. Like that. That's a stretch, right? You want to tell me that Cincinnati, Cleveland, Baltimore, somewhere in there doesn't falter enough to prevent, we all know
they're going undefeated the rest of the season.
No. But home field goes through Kansas City. We know this. The Chiefs are going to get there. Like by the end of the year, we all know that the Raiders, the Broncos are going to be an abject disaster. The Chargers don't look like they're really a serious threat to anything. They're just going to stockpile wins in their own division along the way. The Chiefs are going to be the number 1 seed in the AFC. Just because we think it's boring doesn't mean it's not what's going to happen. And you look forward, the Chiefs looking at their schedule, they got to take on Philadelphia, but they get the bye week to get ready for that tough game, which is crazy. Then they have Vegas, sucks. Green Bay, sucks. Buffalo, not as good as we thought. New England, sucks. Vegas again, sucks. I mean, they're just going to run. Then Cincinnati, okay, and then they finish with the Chargers. Like, there might be, if I'm taking the over-under on losses remaining on Kansas City's schedule, it's 1.5. And that's 1.5 is really hey, do they trip up and somehow lose to the only 2 good teams they have? I liked the plucky story of the Jags getting the number 1 seed. And a Jags-Lions Super Bowl would truly test the concept of will anybody watch any Super Bowl. But that being said, no, there's no way. There's whatever deal with the devil that was made with Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid when he came to the NFL will continue this year because he still has not played a true road playoff game, and I don't think he will this year.
Let me because you think I've been pounding some bourbon early this morning. Are we positive the Chiefs are the better team than the Jaguars? Positive, absolutely. Without question. Look, the Chiefs have just not impressed me this year. I know that it's okay, their defense is really good, but when's this offense going to come around? Where are their receivers? Where are their playmakers? Every week I watch this Chiefs team, and I haven't been whoa, the Chiefs. Not once. Whereas the Jaguars, look, they do have those playmakers. Their defense is just as good as the Chiefs, if not better. I don't know. Maybe we're just sleeping on the Jaguars. Maybe I am too. I only have them like 7th in power rankings. And I've gotten a hard time from Jaguars fans. They're like, oh my God, how can you have them so low? Maybe they're right. They've won 5 in a row. They went to London. They went to New Orleans. They've gone all across the globe, it seems, to win these games. They're still winning them. I'm not 100% convinced the Chiefs are the better team than the Jaguars. Please burn this tape in January when the Jaguars have lost like 5 in a row and the Chiefs are going to a Super Bowl. But I don't know, man. Maybe we're sleeping on this Jaguars as a team, not just like, oh, they got an easy schedule, they can do this. The Jaguars might be good, like sneaky good, because their defense is so much better than we expected it to be.
I don't disagree. Like, by the way, I think you're right. I just, at this point, I mean, it's impossible for me to sit here and say, okay, I got to find the losses on the Chiefs' schedule for them not to be the top seed. And I'm with you. I don't think the Chiefs are very good compared to who they've been. Right. But, man, I also, that doesn't matter because the Chiefs are still sitting where they are record-wise. Like, it took a game without 2 of their best players in a flu game for them to take their 2 losses, and they don't look very good. Like, I want Duval to be happy here. I just don't know how to make it happen. Give me one more, since you've been on a roll. Give me one more since we didn't buy that one. We got time for one more. Sell me one more pen.
All right, I'm going to one that I had before the season, and I gave up on it, but now I'm back, baby. The 49ers will not win the NFC West. It will be the Seattle Seahawks to win the NFC West. I'm sticking it out. These rookies are getting better every week. Jackson Smith and Jigba, Zach Charbonnet, they're already in a room with some great players. DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, Kenneth Walker. Look, Geno's got to get it together. That's the one thing. But I think when their offensive line gets a little healthier, this defense can make plays. Witherspoon is a heck of a player. I don't think anybody's beaten Jalen Carter for Defensive Rookie of the Year, but Witherspoon's in that conversation. Pete Carroll's great coach. And this 49ers team has shown just enough cracks that maybe we're like they weren't as great as we thought those first 5 weeks. All the things that I thought before the season about the 49ers of being a little wary of Brock Purdy and just being all in on him, it's kind of coming to pass. They still got both games coming up. The Seahawks are going to have to stand up to them and punch them in the mouth. They got worked last year 3 times by the 49ers. They're going to have to do it head-to-head, but I think they can. I am actually buying the Seahawks team winning the NFC West. Have I sold you on this at all, or am I just like trying to make myself right from a take I had in August?
Yeah, no, I'm not buying it. Look, right now, the funny thing is things have felt like a disaster for the 49ers, and they felt better than expected for the Seahawks. But if you look at where we are right now, we're at even ground. Both teams are 5-3, right? So it's about what happens moving forward. The concern I have for San Francisco is mostly about the injury bug. Obviously, like everybody's trying to figure out how they get all of their big playmakers healthy. But this is the same team that when all of their playmakers are healthy, we were looking around saying, oh my God, who can beat them? How can they get beat? Nobody can take them down, right? So I do think that there's some element of weakness has come from injury, which has also derailed some of the Brock Purdy thing. The Brock Purdy thing gets interesting. This is the one place where I think you do have an argument. You could have sold me the pen on this. The longer we go into the season with Brock Purdy not looking great, the more pressure that is suddenly heaped onto a young man that we have no idea how he will respond to that. Will that pressure create diamonds, or will he crack? I don't think we know the answer to that. I'm going to presume, though, that by over the course of the next few weeks, as they continue to get healthy, that we get a better representative of what the actual 49ers look like. And Geno has been a little bit up and down. Like I think the Seahawks on paper have everything you want. You're right. The young guys are playing great. The weapons are really good. They got 2 running backs I really trust. I'm not 100% sold on Geno right now. So I don't, but I'm not 100% sold on Brock. So now I got to look at him and say, like, what do I do? And the only fear that I have for the 49ers is health. But I have a hard time believing that they don't get healthy enough to still win that division.
And the thing is, I think that it's a good point on Geno versus Brock. All the questions we have about the Seahawks, well, I don't know if they're overblown a little bit. We talk about how great the 49ers skill guys are, right? Are they that much better than the Seahawks? Like, I get it. McCaffrey's a all-timer, and Kittle's the Seahawks don't have any answer for that. But when you talk about Metcalf, Lockett, JSN, Charbonnet, Zach, and Kenneth Walker, that's a really, really good group. I'm not saying they're quite on the same level as the 49ers, but they're not that far off either. And if Geno could just recapture what he did last year, maybe that's not coming back. We don't know. I don't know. I had high hopes for Geno this year. Maybe that's not coming back. But I got a feeling the Seahawks team is one of the – look, they got blown up by the Ravens, but I don't know. The Ravens might just be that team this year. Who knows? But it didn't really push me off the scent of the Seahawks being a really good team. They have a win at Detroit already. They outplayed the Bengals in Cincinnati. They just couldn't come up with the play they needed. I think the Seahawks team is really, really good. I'm not giving that up. Just because they got blown out by the Ravens, it doesn't push me off that. 49ers are great. They're really, really, they're exciting. They have all this talent. Maybe they just get on a roll again. But these last 3 games have kind of shook me a little bit on this 49ers ceiling. Look, when you lose to the Vikings, when you're losing at home like they did to the Bengals, it might mean you're just not as great as we thought you were.
Well, and I do think you're right. A couple of weeks ago, I just sort of had this awakening where you looked over and you're like, man, I just didn't really realize how many damn weapons the Seahawks have. That like they look dynamic at this point in all the skill position ways. So yeah, no, you still can't let you sell. I can't let you sell me on it.
I get it.
I can sell everybody on hanging out with you, though. Make sure that you follow Frank on Twitter at Yahoo Schwab. Make sure you hang out with us every Sunday for Sunday Night Blitz, of course. It doesn't get any better than Frank, who I appreciate hanging out with us, but it does get more famous. I did have the opportunity to hang out with Aidan Hutchinson, slightly more famous than Frank, and this is some of our conversation. Jason Fitz from Yahoo Sports hanging out with Lions superstar Aidan Hutchinson. Aidan, you're joining us on behalf of USAA. I want to talk to you about that in a little bit, obviously. I also want to talk to you about your career, because I think this is interesting. I've covered the draft for a long time. And realistically, when guys get drafted, so often they're figuring out how to live somewhere, how to adjust their life, what to do with family. Like, you're from Michigan. You played at Michigan. Now you play in Michigan. How much has that sort of impacted your trajectory?
Yeah, it's absolutely ridiculous thinking about it. Just it's amazing ridiculous, though. It's something that I'm so grateful and so happy for. But, looking back at these last few years and how things have unfolded have just, it's mind blowing. And it's every time I look back at it, it's just, you get filled with so many good emotions just because you wonder how you even got here and, how lucky I am to be in this position. So I'm at a loss for words for it still.
Yeah, I know a lot of people from Michigan. So, give me the hand here. Where are we from on the hand versus where we are now on the hand? Is that how, like the Michigan thing, I'm up here, down there? Where are we?
I've never been anywhere up here on the hand, none of that. So, I'm just down in Southeast Michigan, and I kind of just stayed. Honestly, I've stayed in a little triangle my entire life. Growing up in Plymouth, going to school in Ann Arbor, and now playing in Detroit. They're all about 20 minutes away from each other, so it's really crazy. I actually take the same expressway I took to get to high school. I just get off a little bit later to get to the Detroit Lions facility. So it's very cool.
Is that good or bad, though, for the friends blowing you up for stuff? Because, people need to know NFL tickets are not comped for players the way people think. So, you got to get hit up all the time.
I've been able to keep my circle pretty small, so, but obviously you got some of your high school friends, but honestly, they've all been great. I've been blessed with a lot of good high school friends that, respect the boundaries and stuff like that.
So for me, before I got into sports, for years, I lived my life on a tour bus playing country music, right? And I was lucky enough to be successful, which meant I was busy every Thanksgiving. I was thinking about you, though, because that's part of your life. I had to figure out an alternate Thanksgiving plan. For the rest of your future, foreseeably, you are busy on Thanksgiving. So have you figured out, what Thanksgiving looks like now that you work every year on Thanksgiving?
Yeah, man. It's my Thanksgivings are great because I play on Thursdays. Therefore, I get the weekend off, so my Thanksgiving festivities are not very affected by football. So it ends up working out. And it's the Thanksgiving games in Detroit. They're huge because they've been a part of this tradition for so long. And I feel like fans are either going to, or really people in Michigan are either going to the parade or they're going to the Detroit Lions game. So it's great.
Are we still doing a feast after the game? The family wait to eat till after you play then?
I honestly got to remember what I even did last year. I'm pretty sure we just did a little Thanksgiving dinner at night, and it was great.
So media and fans always want to jump on this narrative, same old Lions, right? Anytime the Lions lose, you hear even fans that have been heartbroken for years say, same old Lions. But how does the culture, because that means nothing to you. You didn't play on those teams. So how does the previous culture of a franchise like the Lions impact the current organization?
Yeah. I grew up with the Lions, so I understand. And I feel like anytime we lose a game now, fans get a little PTSD and they're like, ooh, like it's is this going to happen all over again? But I feel like we've really set this foundation for our team, with Dan and with all the guys that we got. It's I feel like we've set ourselves up for success for this year and years down the road. So yeah, man, it's I can understand from the Lions fans' perspective, whenever we hit some adversity or we lose a game, we get blown out by a certain team. It's just stay with it, stay consistent. This is a different team.
But y'all started 1-6 last year. Since then, it's been gangbusters. What changed?
People always ask me that, and we changed a little bit of scheme, we changed a little bit of this and a little bit of that, but it's hard to really pinpoint it. And I feel like guys kind of just had enough at that point. And it's obviously we especially this year, we brought more talent in, to more free agents to help us out. But I feel like, man, the players here just had enough of all the BS and the losing and the close games and the close calls and all that stuff. So I feel like it was more of an attitude shift, and it kind of shifted the energy around us.
You're one of the faces for the Lions. You were one of the faces for Michigan football. Obviously, it's a great year, but there's some controversy. Thoughts on the controversy around Michigan right now?
Not too many thoughts. No. People ask me a lot, and I'm getting a little tired of answering. So I don't have too many thoughts. No.
All right. Well, do you have thoughts on Michigan, Ohio State? Because, look, I always think this is interesting. In locker rooms, you got guys that play everywhere. So any good bets, any trash talking? Where are we going on that one?
Yeah, it's going to be a banger. It's going to be a good one, man. It's going to be I'm actually going to be at that game because that's, again, a perk of playing on Thursday on Thanksgiving, because that Michigan-Ohio State game is always that weekend. So that's another perk, but it's great. So I think Michigan, I think this is a really good team, man. And I know I'm biased, but I do really believe, last year I didn't think they were going to win, in all honesty, at the shoe. So this year, I got the boys. I feel like this is their year to not only get the Big Ten championship, but get the big one.
If we're talking the big one, you got some Bama boys in your locker room too. Who are you trash talking with on Saturdays? Who's the person that's repping their colors the most?
Yeah, right now it's, despite all the allegation, all that BS, I feel like, it's good to be a Michigan Wolverine right now, because I can talk my, in the locker room, and we're Michigan proud. So it's fun, man. And I'm looking forward to seeing them against Penn State this weekend. It's another good time.
Michigan sort of hit the Thanksgiving weekend. The state has hit the lottery because they got the Lions on Thanksgiving. I know Michigan State's no good, but Penn State, Michigan State on Friday, and then your game on Saturday. It's a good weekend to be a Michigan sports fan, just in general there. So obviously, before we get to USAA, I want to get one more thought on you on the NFL. Is there somebody when you see on the schedule, somebody that you cannot wait to take on every week, or in the season? Is there a favorite opponent for you?
I love our divisional games, but I feel like on the rest of our way, I feel like I'm looking forward to this Dallas game a lot, because this is battle of the NFCs, and got some old teammates on that team too that I was pretty good friends with. So I'm really looking forward to that game.
Congrats on all your success. I hope the season continues to be absolutely incredible for you. And, congrats on the trash talk. And you're right, Michigan is really good this year. Either way, you're going to be able to talk your talk. And thanks for hanging out with me, man. I appreciate you.
Thanks, Jason. You have a good one, man.
Again, thanks to Aidan Hutchinson for hanging out with us. Still love the Thanksgiving traditions conversation about Lions players. It's always weird when you work that day every single year. All right. So now we get our weekly visit with Michael Lombardi. You know him well. I know him well. Love hanging out with him every single week. And I want to get your smart thoughts on this, because earlier in the show, I was having a little debate here with Frank Schwab, my buddy. And Frank and I were debating the Dolphins. And I'm sitting here saying, I know they haven't really beaten anybody, but I've also seen them be very close in these games to sort of getting over the hump. So I'm not willing to write them off. Where are you on the Dolphins right now?
I think they've become a scarier team today than they did for me at the beginning of the season, because they've improved so much defensively. Look, when you hire a new defense coordinator, especially one as good as Vic Fangio, there's going to be some growth. There's going to be some issues that you've got to kind of get over the hurdle. But when you look at this defense over the last 4 weeks, last week, the Chiefs had that opening drive, and then they struggled. I mean, they struggled mightily to get the ball down the field. New England couldn't move the ball in the second game. Philadelphia, they moved the ball, but it was a hard struggle for them. And then the Carolina obviously couldn't move the ball. This defense is starting to come around. And one thing we've known over time is you've got to have a great defense to win a title. They have enough offense to win a title. There's no question. But they're going to get beat by a good defense. And now they have a good defense. Coming off the bye week, they play the Raiders at home. I think they're now going to gel. They have Ramsey back. Their rush is better. This is a team that I think is going to become better the second half of the season as it shifts its identity from being all offense to being more of a counterbalanced team that plays complementary football.
What do you do, though? Like, this is the interesting, because I sit in front of a microphone, and what do we say all the time? Well, this team just can't get over the hump. I hate hearing that. I hate saying it because there's no tangible, how do you get over the hump? So if you're the Dolphins internally and you haven't beaten anybody with the winning record, do you even give a damn?
You do. Yeah, you got to rise to the level of play, right? You got to have competitive nature in a most competitive game, and they've got to figure that solution out. Now, they get the running back from A&M back. Achane. They get Achane back, which I think will be really critical for them. So they need him back to help. But look, here's what McDaniels has been doing. Fitz, he's been hiding his offensive line since there. He knows he can't really get into a physical game against another team because his line isn't good enough. But he's done a great job of hiding it. At some point, he's going to have to play a physical game with his line. And that could be the downfall. But as long as the other team isn't running away from him, he can still play that kind of game. And I think that's going to be the key. He's done a good job. They just need the running game back, that explosive running game that they had before he got hurt. That gives them another dimension. They'll beat good teams eventually. They will, because I think this defense will lead them to that.
So you mentioned competitive in big games. I'm not even sure how you find competitive at all for the Giants right now, starting Tommy DeVito. Like, what do you do as an organization when you're in this situation?
Well, I mean, look, you anticipate. Al Davis used to say this all the time. The greatness of all organizations is to anticipate problems, not react. The Giants are reacting to it. Now, people say, well, Lombardi, you're a Giant hater. No, I'm not. I've just been right about the Giants. I told you not to sign Daniel Jones. I told you this offseason that the disease of me was going to creep into your team. All you had to do was read Pat Riley's book, and you guys were the poster child for the disease of me. Everybody getting paid, and no one happy. Everybody got paid. No one's happy. So now you go out to practice. I'm the general manager of the Giants. I go out to practice in the summer. I go out to practice during the first week. And I look at the quarterback situation, and I have to say to myself, yes, I know DeVito has started over 30 games in his college career at Syracuse, and he started 13 at Illinois. But the numbers are not that impressive. Can I really carry him on my practice squad? I know he knows what to do. I wrote about this in Gridiron Genius. This is what I call bus driver players, right? Somebody's got to tell the bus driver where the stadium is. That's really the value of them, right? Oh, if we can't get to the game without him on the bus, right? He's got to tell us where to go. Well, you're in trouble if that happens. And I think, to me, you're in your own dilemma. You saw this. You had Tyrod Taylor. You had Jones. Who anticipates losing 3? But you got to get somebody that you can put in the game. You're telling me there's no quarterback out there that you could put in the game that gives you a better chance to win than DeVito? You may hate Carson Wentz, but at least he's played in a lot of games. You got to give yourself a chance. Now, look, I'm not suggesting bring Mike Glennon back like they did years ago, but you got to be better than this.
I mean, what do you do now? Moving forward, how do the Giants fix the mess they're in?
Well, here's what happens to you, Fitz. You lose credibility as a general manager, as a head coach, when you stand in front of your team and you say, I'm putting the best players on the field. When the players know, as much as they like them, and separate this as a person to a player, as much as they know that this guy isn't going to help them win. They know this. The team knows this. They understand it. You can't lie to them. Everybody on an NFL team is a pro personnel director. They all see the player. They all know who's good and they know who's bad. And they know what the media says and they know what reality is. And so now you stand in front of them and say, this is the best we're going to do. You're talking about being committed to winning games, and you can't find a quarterback better than this? Come on now, that's not fair. And it's not fair to Tommy, just like it wasn't fair to Clayton Tune last week. You put him in the game against the Cleveland Browns defense, and you're asking that kid to make plays, and you're shocked he had 59 total yards of offense? Come on, that's what I call coaching malpractice.
Yeah, and I just, again, if I were to go back in a time machine to a year ago right now, when I was covering a lot of college football, reading a lot of highlights and watching a lot of this stuff with guys at ESPN, I cannot imagine. We did Tommy DeVito games. I cannot imagine sitting there a year ago and saying, yeah, this kid's going to be the starting quarterback of the Giants. I'm stunned. So you mentioned Clayton Tune. Well, now they're making a change at Arizona to bring in Kyler Murray as a starting quarterback. So why are they doing that now in Arizona when it doesn't look like they have anything to play for?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. I think it's a tactical mistake. I think they owe it to probably the kid to see if he'll prove to them that he'll do his preparation, he'll do his work. And maybe they want to find out if all the things that they've heard as they've entered the building are true or not true, right? Every player, you walk into a new building, people will tell you about what's happened before. Some of it's true, some of it's not. And you've got to make up your own mind, and you've got to make up your own decision about the player. Look, here's what we do know about Murray, the player. Hard time throwing the ball from the pocket. If you rush him the right way, hard time making plays. If you let him escape the pocket and run around and make loose plays, dynamic. Arm strength, unbelievable. But to play quarterback from the launch point, not so much. But also what worries you is the off the field. Will he prepare? Will he be the team captain? Will he be the representative of our franchise? Will he be everything we believe in to make everybody else better? I think that's the question, and I think this is what they're going to find out. Will he get ready? And Drew Petzing, the offensive coordinator, is going to find out. Look, I don't expect him to return to the level he did. We're still waiting for Deshaun Watson to get to that level. Watson hasn't even come close to that level. You have to go back to his Houston days to find good games on tape from Watson. There's been no good tapes, really, in reality, of anything close. So I'm not expecting him to play as well. But I am expecting him to behave and try to buy into the program because it's $98 million reasons why he should.
I mean, the $98 million is such a huge part of this, right? Because it's a new regime in many ways, but it's still the same money. You're still saddled with it. So how much does the contract that you're inheriting here impact the way you have to figure out what you're doing at the position?
You're only saddled with it. And this is what I reported 3 months ago. You're only saddled with it if he gets hurt. His contract reads, if he's injured, he gets guarantees. If he's healthy, the skilled part of the guarantee doesn't hit until the 5th day of the league year. So that gets them around the funding mechanism of the NFL. So you have that window. And I was saying as a general manager, you need to take advantage of that window. Don't put him back on the field so he is healthy, so that if you want to cut him, you can. If you want to keep him, you can too. But once you put him back there, now you are exposing your organization to $98 million. And if your owner's okay with that and he believes in the player, God bless. I don't.
That's a crazy part of the economics and the decision making because, and educate me here. This is what we're all talking about the draft next year already because of Drake May and Caleb Williams. We know that, right? But when you're within that organization and you're sitting there saying, man, financially, it could be a nightmare to play him. If he plays and plays well, then we're going to lose draft equity opportunity, right? Like we're going to fall in the draft. If he plays and he plays terribly, then all of a sudden we lose any trade opportunity. Like I can't find a win if other than trying to keep the 53 in the locker room engaged, I can't find a win by letting him sniff a football field.
Yeah, it's what we call the safety margin, right? You ask the question, what happens if he gets hurt? We're screwed. What happens if he doesn't play well? We're screwed. What happens if he plays well? We're screwed. You've got to be able to answer those. The safety margin, you ask questions based on every decision you make. That's how you make good trades. That's how you run a good organization. I think that's what they're not doing. Look, the other thing is right now, you got to say to yourself, if you're Monty Ossendorf, the general manager, is Drake May better than Kyler Murray? You've got to answer that question. You've seen Murray on pro tape. You know what his deficiencies are. You've got to watch Drake May. You got to watch Michael Penix. You got to watch Sam Hartman. You got to watch all these quarterbacks, right? Jaden Daniels. You got to watch them all. Is he better than these guys? If he's not, then it's an easy answer. See, oftentimes in everything we do in an organization, we don't frame the question the right way. The question isn't, should we let him play? The question should be asked, is he better than the players coming out in the draft? Once you answer that, you have your answer on everything.
Yeah, Joe Burrow, by the way, better than all of them. We know that. I've used his name plenty of times talking about this quarterback class and how people feel about quarterbacks coming up. Burrow, injured early in the season. I don't know what he rolled around in, Michael, to get healthy. Like in my mind, it doesn't make sense that you can have a bum calf play quarterback in the NFL and have that bum calf get better. But at this point, he looks reignited. He looks healthy, and the Bengals look wildly different from it. Is Joe Burrow, in your mind, is he 100% of himself and playing at this like elite level?
Well, as you know, I wear my own show as a betting show, the Lombardi line on VSiN. And so going into last weekend, he was 20-1 to be the MVP of the league. Now he's down to 7-1, which one game. And I said on Saturday before the game, it was a good play. Look, the first 4 games of the season, he averaged under 5 yards per pass attempt. Now he averages 7.2. He's been completely different. And we as fans of the sport and we as people that consume the sport have to understand this football is broken into four sections. Every 4 games, you have to reevaluate your team. And Burrow's back to playing like Burrow. He looks like Joe Montana. They are still 31st in the National Football League in rushing attempts. They don't want to run the ball. They're 32nd in yard. They could care less about running the ball. They're going to throw it. They're going to put the ball in his hands, and he's going to win games for them. And he's really good, and he's hard to beat. You go into Buffalo, you go into San Francisco and put 400 yards on them, and come back at home and play Buffalo where they need the game. He's really good. I think he's going to win MVP if he keeps going.
I really only asked you that because I made the case earlier that I thought he could rise for it. So now you make me look smart. There we go. That's why he's great. Be sure you check out the Lombardi line that airs on VSiN weekdays, 1 p.m. Eastern, weekends, 10 a.m. Eastern, as well as Michael's weekly GM Shuffle podcast. Check out all of the NFL takes at VSiN, VSIN.com. My friend, as always, thanks for hanging out with me.
Thank you, Jason.
All right, I'll be back Sunday night with Frank's Sunday Night Blitz. Be sure to check it out if you liked what you heard today. It's just a teaser. It's a little appetizer to the greatness of what we will have for you. And we do every single Sunday. We react live just like you guys are. So the emotions are raw, especially this week coming off of the Raiders playing on Sunday Night Football. We'll see if I'm professional at all. I'm at Jason Fitz. Thanks everybody for hanging out with us this week. Stone at SJ Rochelle, our producer behind the glass doing God's work. Be sure to follow him. Leave us a 5-star review, rate, subscribe, tell your friends, your family, your enemies, and everybody to hang out with us. Let us know what you think of the show. We're back Thursday next week for more Zero Blitz. Thanks for hanging out with us.